Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you for watching and thank you for your valuable feedback. I'll definitely keep them in mind while making new videos. So today I'm going to speak about the different blood cells. But before going into the topic, let me brief you what we discussed so far. So we started with very basic things, understanding how life begins in human by the fusion of the sperm and the egg cell. Then how the single cell zygote differentiate into a multicellular organism by the process of cellular differentiation, making different organ system and then the complete individual. So we studied about DNA, the basic about the DNA, how this DNA carries in genetic information and how through the mRNA it is translated into protein. So we studied in detail about mutation at the DNA level and how this mutation can affect the formation of the right protein. Okay, so we studied in detail about muscular dystrophy as a human genetic disease condition where mutation at the DNA level can lead to formation of like non-functioning protein, so that leads to such condition. So I wanted to give you some more example about DNA mutation and that leads to certain blood disorders. But before that, I thought let me brief you about the different cells in the blood, so that we can understand uh, the blood related disorder in a better way. So, so you might be knowing like blood has the many different cells. Like basically, there are three different kind of cell. One is the erythrocyte, which is called RBC. So that carries oxygen to all the cells and tissues in the body. So we have platelet, or we call it them as thrombocytes. So they are involved in blood clotting. So and then we have the very interesting group of cells are called leukocyte or the WBC. So these are a group of different cells that serves the defense mechanism of our body. So whenever there is a foreign substances or foreign intruder, or like it can be a parasite, it can be a virus, or it can be a bacteria. So whenever there is an infection, so the series of events that takes place, if you notice, so it's very interesting to watch these cells in action and how like they at the end um, they eliminate the pathogen from our body. So this is very interesting as well as dramatic. Like you can compare this series of events uh, watching a fighting scene in a Bollywood movie. So they are that much interesting to watch. Okay, so I always feel like we are an individual, and in our body all the cell also they behave again as an individual, and they overall they give a certain function. So let us go to the slides. So we'll go to the slide now. So then in the next session we'll be talking about we'll start with either sickle cell anemia or hemophilia, or like there are other diseases. We'll choose a few of them and we'll discuss on that. So thank you so much for watching. Again, I want again thank you so much for watching, and thank you.
Hi guys, so let us understand the different blood cells. So let us see what is the function of the blood. Okay, so if we look into individual components, then it will give rise the overall functioning of the blood. So the red blood cells, which are erythrocytes, they help in transport of oxygen between different parts of the body. So they carry the oxygen from the lungs basically to like every or like tissues and cells within our body. So the white blood cell, they provide the defense mechanism, they form the defense mechanism of our body to fight against any foreign pathogens. So the platelet are involved in the blood clot formation. So whenever there is bleeding due to some injury or cut, so this is the platelet which actually help in clotting of the blood. So the blood also provide as a support or act as an external matrix on which the different blood cells are suspended. So the blood is very important for any like metabolic function in our body because they transport lot of molecules or substances like they transport oxygen, they transport carbon dioxide, they transport glucose, and many like they transport antibodies, they transport hormones, like many different things they transport. That's why they are very important for any metabolic functioning that is happening inside our body. The role of blood is very vital. So they also help in regulating body temperature. So as we understand, the blood is important for many vital functions in our body. So any condition where the components of the blood are affected or there is excessive loss of blood, it can be life threatening. But nowadays many effective treatments are available. And how to separate the blood components? Using a centrifuge we can separate the blood. So in the centrifuge, when we are taking the blood collection tubes and we are spinning that at a very high speed. So this is a rotating motor inside. So what happens, this creates a rotational force, or we call it as a centrifugal force. This centrifugal force isolates the bloods into several components based on the quantity and as well as the density in the sample. So in this way, like once the blood is spinned in the centrifuge, it can be separated into three different zones, as we can see here. So one is the denser cells goes down the tube, so the plasma remains at the top, forming a yellow layer, and this red layer is formed by the red blood cells, and the middle white layer is called buffet coat. So it is formed by combination of white blood cell as well as the platelet. So this is how after separation it looks like. So the plasma constitute about more than 55% of the blood, and the red blood cell constitute like almost contribute to 41%, while the combination of white blood cell and the platelet contribute total 4%. So the plasma, it constitute the main constituent of the plasma, it more than 92% is composed of water, but there are also a lot of other substances present in the plasma, which are different ions and proteins. Proteins can be, it can be some hormones, or it can be like immunoglobulins and different nutrients and waste like urea and gases like carbon dioxide or oxygen. So these are basically the components of the plasma. So the plasma offers several different functions. So it can act as a reservoir of water. So in our body, whenever there is a replenish of or there is insufficient water, so plasma can act as a reservoir for providing water. And this plasma also prevent collapsing of the blood vessel or clogging of the blood vessel. So it maintain the blood pressure as well. So plasma also helps in regulating the body temperature. So how it does, because it circulates in the blood vessel and carries the heat generated in certain core body areas, and it take it to the areas where it can lose heat more rapidly. So now let us look into the different blood cells. So the blood cells can be divided into three major categories: the red blood cells or the erythrocytes, the white blood cells or the leukocytes, and the thrombocytes or the platelets. So the white blood cells are again divided into granulocytes or agranulocytes based on the granules present in the cytoplasm. The granulocytes again can be divided into based on the staining properties. So they are again divided into three subcategories. So they are eosinophils and basophil and neutrophils. So the agranulocyte mostly constituted by the lymphocytes and the monocytes. So the monocytes gives rise to the dendritic cells and the macrophages, and these all dendritic cells and macrophages both act as the antigen presenting cells. So the lymphocytes are again basically divided into T lymphocytes and B lymphocytes. We call them a T cell and B cell as well. So let's study more about them. So coming to the red blood cell, they form the major portion of the cells in the blood, and these are the cells which contain the hemoglobin, so which is able to carry the oxygen molecule. So basically these are the cells involved in transport of oxygen. So these are non-nucleated, they do not have nucleus, and also they do not have many of the organelles when they mature, like they don't have mitochondria. So what this offers several advantages, benefits of not having the nucleus, because their main function is to carry oxygen. So they get some extra space of not having the nucleus, because it carries lot of hemoglobin molecules inside. And also not having mitochondria also having a benefit that this oxygen are not used by the mitochondria, and they make sure the maximum amount of oxygen that they carry can reach to the target cells. So this is basically a hemoglobin molecule. This is a globular protein, and this is a tetrameric protein, and each subunit has a heme group attached to it, which actually binds to the oxygen. So a single molecule of hemoglobin can easily bind to the 4 molecule of oxygen. Another thing that I'd like to mention about RBC is they have a biconcave structure, and like it is more like a disc-shaped structure. This structure allows the RBC to be more flexible, and it can pass through very thin blood vessels rapidly. This is to show the functioning of the red blood cell. So the red blood cell, usually because of it has the hemoglobin, so it can carry the oxygen from the lungs and in the form of oxyhemoglobin, and it provides to different all the cells and tissues in our body, and in return it can also take back some amount of carbon dioxide from the different cells to the lungs in the form of carbaminohemoglobin. So now coming to the white blood cells, so they are less common in number in compared to the RBCs, and they do have very well defined nucleus and mitochondria. All these organelles are present. The main function of white blood cell is to bring the immunological reaction. So whenever there is a foreign substances in our body, it can be any foreign particle like virus, bacteria, or any parasites. So they recognize and neutralize this foreign particle. So the WBC can be subdivided into two groups, that is granulocytes and agranulocytes. So the agranulocytes are mostly like lymphocyte and monocyte, whereas the granulocyte can be subclassified into neutrophil, basophil, and eosinophil. This is based on their staining features, and also the based on the lobulated nucleus. So all these white blood cells are produced in the bone marrow. So now coming to the granulocytes, so they are as mentioned, there are 3 types. So neutrophils are they constitute about 50 to 70% of the total circulating leukocyte we find in the blood. So major function is to defense against the infection. So it helps to protect the body from the infectious agents. And basophil are they are non-phagocytic granulocyte, and their granules stain like blue in standard staining protocol. And like both basophil and eosinophil are responsible for the allergic responses in our body. So eosinophil, again, their granules can stain a brilliant pink in standard staining protocol. So their function is they aid in the functioning of the basophils, mostly in the allergic reactions. Coming to the agranulocytes, so they do also contain some like small quantity of granules, mostly lysosomes, and their nucleus is basically spherical, and they are non-lobulated. So the agranulocyte includes the monocyte, lymphocyte, and monocyte. So both of them are very critical. Their action is very important against like any antigen or pathogenic organisms. So they also protect our body from different damaged cells. So now coming to the monocyte, like they mostly, like both dendritic cells and macrophages, both function as an antigen presenting cell. The antigen presenting cells has a very important function because they are the bridge between the innate immune response and the adaptive immune response. So innate immune response is something that we are born with, but adaptive immune response is something that is our body develop against when encountering any pathogens. So this is very critically important because they form the link between these two systems. So when they come to the site and come in contact with this pathogen, so they become activated. So they have a phagocytic like action, so by which they digest, they can engulf the foreign particles, and some peptides they can present on their surface by the help of MSC, and then this happens at the site of infection, but again they travel to the places like the lymph nodes where they display these peptides for T cell activation. So that's why like their role is very important in our body. So let's know some more detail about the dendritic cells. The dendritic cells seem to arise from like at the end we'll talk about it, how this all the cells originate. So they originate from the hematopoietic stem cell, and hematopoietic stem cell can give rise to two different line of cells, and it seems like a dendritic cell can originate any from both the lines of these cells. And so they do, as I mentioned, they do the antigen capture at one site, like at the site of infection, and also they do the antigen presentation in another site, like like in the lymph nodes. So where they can activate the other immunological cells by presenting the antigens, this antigen to the like T cell or the B cell. So when these dendritic cells do the antigen presentation to the naive T cells, so they are initiating the adaptive immune response. And macrophages are the monocyte which migrate into different tissues in response to infection and can be differentiated there as macrophages. So they have very super phagocytic activity they have, and they have ability to remove any like pathogen and damaged cell also from the site of infection. So majorly their function is in the innate immune response, whereas dendritic cell becomes a bridge between the innate as well as the adaptive immune response. So the lymphocytes are basically very round cells, and they contain a large nucleus, and there are two main kind of lymphocyte. One is the B cell which mature in the bone marrow, and the T lymphocyte, so which mature in the thymus gland. So lymphocytes are the smallest of all the leukocyte. So some lymphocyte may be circulating in the blood, but most of them we found them in the tissues. So they are present in the lymphatic tissues such as lymph nodes and the spleen. So once activated, they have different way of activation. So once activated, they both type of cell bring two different kind of immunological reactions. So the basically the B cell that differentiate into a plasma cell, and which can produce large amount of antibodies, and the T cell called the T helper cell secrete chemicals, so that can activate other other immune cells. So like the cytotoxic T cell as well as the T helper cell can also activate the B lymphocytes. So coming to the T lymphocytes, so T cells that produce in the bone marrow, but later they mature in the thymus, and then they migrate to different system like lymphatic tissues, or they also in the bloodstream we can find them. The T cell can be divided into cytotoxic T cells and helper T cell. So the cytotoxic T cells are CD8 positive cells, uh, because they have the CD8 marker on the surface, CD8 receptor on their membrane. So their function is to kill infected cell that is being infected by viruses or bacteria. So they can also destroy the tumor cells. So helper T cell, they are called CD4 positive cells because they have the CD4 marker on their CD4 receptor on the surface. So helper T cell, they don't kill a cell directly, but instead they send signal to other cells. So this helper T cell can send signal to cytotoxic T cells, to B cells as well as to macrophages. So plasma cell, as I mentioned, the B cell which can differentiate into the plasma cell. So these are called plasma cell or plasma B cell, or we call effector B cell. So they are all derived from the B lymphocyte, and this plasma cell can produce a lot of antibodies, and these antibodies are closely modeled after the receptor of the precursor B cell. That means from the parent cell, wherever they are getting amplified in number, so they will be producing the same antibody that is being there as the receptor on the precursor B cell. So once they release into the lymph, these antibodies bind to the target antigen, and they can neutralize or destroy the antigen. So they have a very characteristic look where there are very well defined nucleus which is acentric, means that is towards one corner, and a lot of rough endoplasmic reticulums, and very well developed Golgi complex and mitochondria, and very prominently visible under a electron microscope. So these are its characteristic because they are involved more in the production of antibodies. So all that organelles that is involved in protein expression and production are very prominently visible. So they keep on producing the antibody. So once they start producing antibodies, so they can produce it for days or several days or months also. So until the antigen has been eliminated from the body. So there is another type of cell called natural killer cell. We should because they have a very significant role. We should understand that also. So this is also a white blood cells that has some granules, and they can directly kill tumor cell or cells infected with some viruses. So NK cell can destroy cells at a early stage, preventing virus or cancer cell from spreading. So why they are called as natural killer cells? That means these cells have the ability to destroy any potential threat directly without prior exposure to such pathogen. Whereas for the example, like the cytotoxic T cell that can also kill such pathogens, but they need some signal or they need this information from other cells. But in case of natural killer cell, they have all this, they can take their own decision. So whenever they feel there is something unnatural or that can there is some threats, so they can kill those cell directly. So that's why they are called as they have this natural ability to kill cells. So they are called as natural killer cell. So there are also type of white blood cells, and they do have granules which contain enzyme that can kill like tumor cells as well as cells infected with viruses. So basically, the thrombocytes or the platelets, they are non-nucleated. That means they do not have a nucleus. So if you see, they are produced from the megakaryocytes. So these are the extension of the megakaryocytes, which later form the platelet. So they do not have any nucleus. That means they cannot divide. So and their cytoplasm is pegged with granules that contain variety of substances, and that promotes basically the blood clotting. So they are cells that are involved in the clotting of the blood. So now coming to the platelet function, so there is a damage in the blood vessel due to any cut in our body. So what happens, the platelet will immediately are getting attracted to the side of this wound and forming a sticky plug. So the platelets can release signals, so that will attract more platelets to come to this site of wound, and they become very sticky, and they also activate a series of reactions, so that can convert the fibrinogen into fibrin. So once the fibrin is formed, so the fibrins are thread-like structure, and they supports the platelet plug. So this way they can do the clotting of the blood and prevent further loss of blood, and also that helps in preventing any further infection to the wound. And the last, like we spoke all about the blood cells, and I would like to show you like how this blood cells are originated. So like all these blood cells are derived from a single stem cell called hematopoietic stem cell present in bone marrow. So the hematopoietic stem cell gives rise to two lineages. One is myeloid stem cell lineage and the lymphoid stem cell lineage. And the myeloid stem cell lineage give rise to most of the cells except the lymphocytes. Uh, like it can give rise to the platelets are formed in this lineage, the RBC is formed, the basophil, neutrophil, eosinophil are formed from this lineage, as well as the monocytes are formed. And whereas like in the lymphoid stem cell lineage, so they give mostly to the lymphocytes like the T cell and B cell, as well as the natural killer cell. The plasma cell is derived from the B cell basically. like you might have noticed, like the dendritic cell, as I mentioned before, so they can be like formed in either of the lineage. So this is all about the different cells in the blood. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you.